Hey guys, it's 100 here. Alright, now here I am continuing on with these Rise and Fall of John Hughes reviews. And next up, now here I am with a review for The Breakfast Club. Yeah, so really what can I say about this movie? I mean, yeah, everybody has already talked about this movie. Like this is a film that just about like everybody knows. I mean, and when people think of like John Hughes movies, this is one that will always come to people's minds. Like, yeah, this film has really been regarded as a classic, as like for all these years. I mean, yeah, the movie was released in 1985, and to this day, it is still looked at as a classic. Like, yeah, this is really like regarded by a lot of people to be like one of John Hughes' best movies, and yeah, it is. Yeah, so yeah, this was a movie that like John Hughes did not only write, but John Hughes was also the director for this movie. Yeah, so yeah, this was also one of the movies that John Hughes directed along with wrote it. Yeah, and yeah, this really is like a really really good movie. Yeah, I mean, the story for this movie, like, it is like pretty much just a very very simple story, but yeah, it is done like a really really good. Like, just yeah, just its simplicity is done like a very very well, and yeah, and it really does make it like a really entertaining film. Yeah, so yeah, so I'm sure that just about all of you know this film story. All it really is just it's about a group of students that are serving detention for an entire Saturday in school. Yeah, and yeah, and it shows that like all five of the students are all like just completely different from each other. Yeah, and yeah, and as the film like starts, like it shows that like just absolutely none of them get along. Like they're all like just so totally different from each other. Yeah, and they really are just like always like at each other like for like throughout like a majority of the film. But then later on, like as they like are talking to each other, like they do like realize that despite the fact that each one of them are like just like totally different from one another, yeah, they do like see that they really do are all like going through like some they all are do gosh, I'm getting tongue tied here. Yeah, it shows that they really do all like have like similar problems as one another, and yeah, and then yeah, it does. They do then eventually like see that they really do kind of like form a bond with one another, and yeah, and by the end of the film, it does show that like they all like do like form a connection with one another in one way or another. Yeah. So yeah, so it is just yeah, it is like a relatively simple film. Like there's not really like any action or anything for like pretty much this entire film. It really is just like talking. It really is just like all these kids, the students like talking with each other, and yeah, they do also do like have scenes where they like are like they're the vice principal who's in charge of the detention comes in and just like is like yelling at them and getting on them and all this other stuff. Yeah. So so this is like I said, it is like just a relatively simple movie. It really is just like just a whole bunch of talking as these kids are in detention. Like there's no like you know there's no like real like true like plot for the movie. Like there's no like action or anything in it. Like it really is just like talking throughout this entire film. Yeah. So yeah, so that is it is like a relatively simple movie. Yeah. So yeah, so a lot of times like when you do have like movies like this, like it really doesn't work because people will just really get bored with it, just like listening to all this talking. Yeah, and plus it really does really follow like that sort of like 80s style like teen movie formula where you just have like this group of kids all together like going through stuff, and yeah, and a lot of times like it can be like just really boring to watch, and you really are just like hating it. But yeah, this is probably like one of the few times where it actually does work, and it does put out a pretty enjoyable movie. Yeah, and I really do feel that this really is something like that really can like teach a lot of teens. Like, despite the fact that you may like meet people that really just seem like entirely different from you, they may be going through like the same sort of issues that you would be that you're going through also. Yeah. So yeah, so really is like a very very different sort of John Hughes movie than a lot of his other ones because yeah, like a lot of his other movies like they really are just like just do have like just the standard film look feel where there is actually like a plot and there's action going on and all this stuff, but yeah, here like it really is just like very very simple. It really is just like people talking through basically the entire thing. So it really is kind of similar to like 12 Angry Men, how like for that movie it really is just like everybody talking, and it really just like sounds like a pretty boring thing to watch, but as you're watching it, you do realize that it really is like done like very very well, and that's the case here too. Yeah. So I just really don't know what I can really say about it. I mean, because yeah, it really is just like a very simple story. It really is just like all these kids talking, but yeah, it is done like very very well. Yeah. Yeah. So in this film, like you do have cast members like Emilio Estevez, Anthony Michael Hall, uh, Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, Ali Sheedy, Paul Gleason, and John Capellos. Yeah, and they all are pretty good at their roles. I mean, yeah. So Emilio Estevez like is one of the students in the movie. Like he is like this like a he's like a varsity wrestler or that really is like the kind of like a one of the big tough guys. Yeah, and you also do have like Judd Nelson who plays he's another one of the students, and he really is just like this. He's just this like a delinquent, and that's like always getting into trouble. Trouble, yeah, and the other kids in the film, like you do have like just this like this nerd kid who's like the pretty much the smart one of the group. Yeah, and you also do have like the popular snobby girl and all, and the outcast that really is just like the one that really is just the odd one out. Yeah, so yeah, so you pretty much like have like all the like categories covered, like with like the jock and the bad boy, the nerd, the popular one, and the odd one out. Yeah. So yeah, so it's pretty much like all five categories of like the type of students that you see in school. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and like I said, like pretty much like for like this entire movie, it really is just the five of them talking. Like it shows that they are like arguing at first, and just like they're completely different from each other and not getting along. But then, as they are like talking with each other more, they do like see that they do all have similar problems. Yeah, and I feel like all five of the students really do play off one another very very well. I do think that they all really do have some good chemistry with each other. Yeah, like with Emilio Estevez as the wrestler, and then the delinquent. Yeah, I'm just like seeing them like always fighting. Like that is like cool to see. Kind of like how it's like two bad boy tough guys go, it's just at each other like that. Yeah, it is pretty cool, and it is like enjoyable to see. Yeah, and also just like how you do have like the odd one out that really is just like the outcast of the group, showing how like she is really like kind of like just very distant from all the others through like a good part of the film. Yeah, like it's just how she's real quiet and just seems like very very weird. But then yeah, and it also does like eventually reveal how she really is not actually wasn't actually given detention that day, and she didn't even need to come, but she came because she really didn't have anything better to do that day. So yeah, so kind of interesting seeing a person like that, how like despite the fact that they weren't given detention, they came to it anyway. Yeah, yeah, and it also does like really say like why each of them are in detention, and how they all really do have like other problems, such as like whether it's like family issues or just like pressure in school or whatever the case may be. Yeah, Yeah, and like I said, just yeah, by the end of the film, it does show that like each of them are kind of like more similar than they originally did think with like the issues that they're going through, and yeah, and it shows that like they each kind of like form a bond with one another. Like it shows how like Emilio Estevez does bond with the outcast girl, and the popular girl Hurl like a bonds with the delinquent. Yeah, and they each do also like a bond on with like each one another other as well. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So really, just I really don't know what else I can really say about the film. Just yeah, I mean, I don't really think that there's really any point of me really going through the premise because really, just there's really not really much to say about it. Like for like pretty much all this film, it really is just like the characters all talking with one another. Yeah, and I guess like I will talk a little bit about the vice principal. Like the vice principal, like as I said, he's the one like in charge of the detention, and yeah, and it shows how like he's really just give it like telling all the students like that they really are just to sit in the library until the detention lets out at 4 o'clock. Yeah, and he gives them like each like the uh, duty of writing a 1,000 word essay about like who they are, which does come into play at the very end of the film. Yeah, but yeah, it also like just show like how he really is like very very rough on all five of the students. Yeah, and he especially like zeroes in on the delinquent boy. Yeah, yeah, and he's just like always yelling at him, and it just shows how like he is like constantly like a stacking up like more Saturday detentions on him. Like he gives him like a total of 8. Yeah, yeah, and it does show like how he does see how he's like really like acting up, and he like ends up like putting him in like a storage closet as punishment. So the vice principal really is just like being very very hard on the students throughout the film. Yeah, and it also does show like there's also a janitor there, and it was, at one point like he the vice principal talked to the janitor, telling him how like the kids are like more disrespectful in school than they used to be. But then the janitor then just told the vice principal that it's not the kids that are changing; it's just his attitude that's changing. Yeah. So yeah, the janitor really does actually like show the help the vice principal like realize that really like he's the problem and not the students. Yeah. So I guess it really does teach a lesson to the vice principal as well. Yeah. And I guess yeah, of course like something that this movie was probably the most well known for is probably the song that everybody will associate with the film. Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds. Like yeah, if you do know this like if you hear this song, you'll always think of this movie. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know the song. Dun, 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 dun. Don't you forget about me. Yeah, yeah. If you hear that song, like you'll immediately think of this movie. Yeah. So I'll have that song in the description if you want to listen to it. Yeah, because like I said, this is a song all that will make people immediately think of this film. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, like I said, just yeah, the film just it really does have like a relatively simple story to it, but yeah, it is done like really really well. This really does a good job, kind of like just kind of like teaching a bunch of like teens a lesson about like a person that is just seems like entirely different from you could still like be very similar to you due to what they're going through. So I really do feel that that is probably like the main in a message that this movie really is sending. Yeah, and yeah, like I said, like towards the end of the film, it really is like when like all five of the students really do realize how much similar that they are to one another than they originally did think, and it does show like toward the end of the film how they're like dancing all around the library, and yeah, and as they're leaving the school, like it shows then that the nerdy student like is did write an essay because all five of them really did seem like they did have the same thing to say, and so then he left the essay in the library, and as the vice principal read it after the students left, like it was reading that like each one of us is a brain, an athlete, a basket case, a princess, and a criminal. and that's who they are. And it's just does that answer your question? And then the essay was signed with "Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club." Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, and that is really like the only like actually the actual mention of like the Breakfast Club in this movie. Yeah. So yeah. So I do find it kind of interesting that despite the fact that it like the film is actually like a titled The Breakfast Club, like the title isn't even actually referenced until the very end of the film. It's the last line in the movie. Yeah, so I just did feel that that was like really interesting that they really like as you're watching it, you're kind of just like seeing it like what exactly does this really have to do? Like why is this called the Breakfast Club? Then at the very end of the movie, that's how you get your answer. Yeah. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of like a clever way to actually like kind of like not really like actually have any like sort of reference to the title until the very end of the film. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, this definitely is like a good enjoyable movie, and like I said, this probably is just like one of the very few times that a film like that has this simplicity to it really does work. Yeah, yeah. So so I guess I would probably give the film probably like around 3.5 stars out of 4. Yeah. As far as recommending this film, like of course like this film really is like a classic to many, so I guess like it is I would give it a recommendation for that sake. But as far as like what your sense in movies are, like I don't really know if you really would actually like get enjoyment out of this because if you are like one of those kinds of people that are like really just really do want to see like some interesting stuff in a movie because yeah of course like just with all the talking in the film it really is doesn't really have like that interesting of a setup at all. Well yeah, so yeah, if you really are like into stuff that really is like more interesting and exciting like this film probably is not going to give you that stuff, but yeah, but if you really can actually like put up with this like if you are okay with like this kind of setup with just simplicity of just pretty much only talking throughout the movie, then yeah, then you will definitely get enjoyment out of the film because yeah, this is like one of those times where like just the talking and it is done like very very well. Like I said, it really is like along the lines of like 12 Angry Men with like just like with the simplicity of it, it is just done very very good. Yeah. So yeah, so I guess like that's what I would say in terms of recommending this film. Yeah. But like I said, definitely like a really good film and yeah, really like looked at as one of John Hughes' best works. Yeah. So yeah, so like I said, I would give this film probably 3.5 stars out of 4. All right. So yeah, so I guess that's really the best way I can put it. All right. Yeah. So I guess that's all I have to say. All right, so yeah, so this is it for my review of The Breakfast Club. So I hope you guys did enjoy this review, yeah, and stay tuned because yeah, now and because yeah, there are still more of these reviews coming of other John Hughes movies with the rise and fall of John Hughes, yeah. So stay tuned for more coming up, and yeah, I'm gonna be getting to some more of like John Hughes's more well-known movies. Yeah. So yeah, so I've got more of these reviews coming, so stay tuned. All right, but I hope you guys enjoyed this review. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.